Welcome to Inkwell Spoken Presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I'm your host, Reggie Key, and today I have with me my guest, Janelle Scruggs. Janelle, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Is it okay? Did I get your last name? Because sometimes I see it hyphenated. Is it cool?
Yeah, so it is Scruggs-Bagley. That's my full last name, but Scruggs
Okay.
is fine as well.
All right. When I exit, I'm gonna give you your full credit due. It'll be like Scruggs Bagley. Yes, I said it right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So that's important to me. Names are important to me. I may get into why names are important to me a little later. In fact, labels are important to me, which is why I'm doing these interviews because one label that we do not accept for ourselves very well is this label of genius. And so, having said that, my first question to you, Janelle, is: do you consider yourself to be a genius?
So no, I think that I'm very, very smart. I'm very, very bright,
Uh
but
huh.
I wouldn't necessarily label myself as a genius.
Okay. All right. And that's pretty typical in the response, right? Most people who I
Hmm.
talk to, and even at one point in time before this workshop existed, I wouldn't have. I would have said the same thing. I'm pretty smart. Yeah, I got good GPA, but genius, I don't know about that. I'm going to challenge that, and I've been challenging it for years now with the workshop that I have in the book that I wrote. And so I just want to walk you through the components of this genius and see if we can't get you to change your mind about whether or not you see genius in yourself. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So my next question for you, Janelle, is who does come to mind when you think of this word genius?
Okay, so outside of like Albert Einstein and stuff like that,
No, yeah,
um,
that's it right there. Oh, you got somebody
yeah.
else other than Einstein? Who else?
Well, there was a math teacher of mine, Mr. Dahan.
Hmm.
I think he was a mathematical genius. I
Okay.
don't. There was something about him and the way that he taught that made me understand math the way that he did. So I would even almost put him under that.
Okay.
Um, but yeah,
So by and large, you are in good company because everybody, the majority of people who I talk to, they say, I'm not a genius. But when I ask them, who is it that comes to mind? Just, in an instant, they all pretty much say Albert Einstein. And there's something okay, but not okay with that, right?
yeah,
So I'm not trying to take anything away from Einstein. His theories are still being proven by the things that we're able to see through telescopes that he could not see outside of his mind, 50, 80 years ago, whatever. So I'm not saying that he is not a genius, but there's something interesting that happens uh, when people say, "Hey, look, Einstein was a genius." When they associate that word to him, they automatically disassociate that word from themselves because they're like, "I'm not Einstein. I don't know
I'm
what
not. I'm
e
not that
dimension
smart.
squared is. I didn't do well in physics, theory of relativity, and don't know nothing about it. So if I don't know those things and Einstein is a genius, then that must mean that I am not a genius, and that is faulty logic. Okay."
Okay.
Um, Einstein purportedly knew this himself because there's this quote that I want to say for you that purportedly comes from him. Are you ready for the
Okay.
quote?
Yes.
And just let me know how this hits you. The quote goes something like this: "If you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it will spend its entire life thinking it's stupid." Have you heard that before?
No, I have not.
How's that?
But
How are you processing that? What does that mean to you?
you can't view everything under the same light. Everything has its own light. So yeah, like if you try to judge the fish by climbing the tree, it's not ever gonna happen. Like that's just not what it's built to do.
It's not though. And so, how do you think that relates to genius though?
That means that not everyone isn't a genius. There might be something. Everyone's good at something. It might not be
Yeah.
everything, or like Albert Einstein. I won't be measured at the same level because I was not built that way.
Yes, that's it. Your design is different from Einstein. Einstein was like a bear. That dude climbed trees in his sleep. Like that's just what he
Yeah,
did. But
yeah,
for us to compare ourselves, like, man, I can't climb this tree like Einstein. I must be dumb. Like, I'm not a genius. Like, that's not how this should work. All of us, when we get a chance to know what our lane is and discover what our element is, we can then find and unlock our genius within that element, right? If we keep trying to compare ourselves to something outside of our lane, then our genius is going to start to suffer, and it's going to start to get overlooked and disregarded, right? So, if you were to look outside right now and go look at the tree and see a fish in the tree, I mean, I know 2021 and 2022 and 2020 have been rough, but I'm telling you, if I see a fish in the tree, it's time to get off the planet. Something is not
something
right.
not right. Yeah, it's
Why?
time to go.
Because do fish belong like on land and trying to climb trees? Where do fish belong?
In the water.
They belong in the water.
Along.
Everybody knows that. Everybody knows, like you said, the fish is designed, it's streamlined to flow through this water. It has gills to breathe on the water and not need to come up and grab and get some air.
Fresh air, right.
When you put this fish in this water, you're gonna see what it was designed to do. You're gonna see this joker come to life. Like it's literally dying, trying to climb this tree. If we stick with this metaphor for a little bit, it's literally a fish out of water. And it's trying to climb this tree, and somebody's supposed to come along and say, "Hey, look, man, you're supposed to be in the water." And why don't we judge you by your design instead of by what we're trying to force you to do, or what you're trying to force yourself to do because of what you see going on around you? And in truth, that's how I look at genius now. Like, everybody has their own lane of genius. It's just a matter of getting into it. And the formula that I came up with and that I talk about in my book really helps dive into, no pun intended, that came out nice though, really helps dive into the aspect of what is your genius according to three components. It's your passion, your talent, and your purpose. And if you can tap into each of these three things and then combine them together, kind of like a puzzle, understand how they fit together, you will, I guarantee you, unlock your genius that's unique and specific to you.
Okay.
So, is that something you wanna kind of get into a little bit?
Yeah, I would love to. I think this would be amazing.
I think it's amazing too, but I'm biased.
Right.
You think it's genius? So, check it. I want to get into this passion thing. So, just like I just kind of deconstructed genius, and now I'm kind of beginning to reconstruct it and trying to see if you see yourself on the inside of it. When we get to this first component of passion, I have to do the same thing. I'm going to ask you what comes to mind when you hear this word passion. I'm going to ask you what your passion is, and then I'm going to kind of deconstruct it a little bit. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So tell me, what comes to mind? What are some words that come to mind when you hear this word passion?
So sometimes I think of like, okay, so I'm a Bridgerton fan. I think of like fire, like something that kind of motivates you, something that you like to do, and it's motivating, that kind of pushes you forward, and whatever that means, right? If we're just talking about just the word passion.
Yep. Like drive, right? Something on the inside of you. Somebody described it one time. It's like fuel. I'm like, yes, it propels you to go forward.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's good. So tell me, Janelle, and be prepared to maybe have it shifted around as we keep talking about what are you passionate about? What's your passion?
So my passion is to help people. I love helping people. I do find a joy in that. That's what I'm. It's usually towards children. It's strongly towards children, and sometimes people of needs, special needs sometimes. But for the most part, it started with kids.
All right.
There's something about kids that I really, whether it be just playing games or trying to teach, stuff like that. I really enjoy working with kids.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some kids in a little bit. So I think you'll appreciate this. Now, how I approach genius, though, is not how most adults approach genius. Like, can you remember back when you were like maybe getting ready to graduate high school and people started asking you the same question over and over and over? Janelle, what you going to do? Are you going to go to college? What are you going to major in? And, adults, we do this weird thing where we ask you the question and then tell you the answer. Like, what you going to do for a living? What you going to do? You know what? Do what you love. and people tell you that all the time, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what I'm going to focus on as it relates to this genius equation is don't find out what you love. Like save that for marriage. If you want to find out what drives you, you want to find out what your passion is, find out what you hate.
Mm.
A little different.
Mm.
A little different.
Okay.
Okay. Just
Okay.
flow with me. I'm going somewhere with you.
Okay.
You know I'm going
Right. No,
somewhere.
I'm look, I told you I'm here for the
And
ride.
you
I
open.
dived in.
All
I'm
right.
in the water.
You're in the water. Let's go. So the reason why I say that you should focus on something that you hate. Notice I didn't say a person or something
Mm-hmm.
about
Right.
yourself. Like I talk to kids with this all the time. And one kid recently walked up to me and she said, "Can I tell you something?" Like, I don't want to say this out loud, but she's like, "I hate how tall I am." And I'm like, well, that's like the fish saying, "I hate that I have scales." Like you can't hate how you were designed because you were designed for a reason.
Right.
There's something that you are meant to do. You might not be in your element yet, but when you get in your element, you'll see why you were designed the way you were designed. And so I say, don't hate anything about yourself. And I say, don't hate a person either. Don't be like her. Like, don't do that. If
Right.
anything, what is the trait that a person has that rubs you the wrong way? Try and figure that out.
Okay.
And so the reason why I'm focusing on, what it is that you hate is because most times the thing that we hate is the thing that impacts us in a negative way. It makes us feel like a fish out of water. And so many times the thing that we carry with us that we hate when we encounter it, when we see it, is something that we encountered when we were younger. And it caused some type of trauma. It caused some type of like, I feel pushed to the side. I feel limited.
Mm-hmm.
I feel helpless. And we're like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, I hate that feeling. And so when
Okay.
we get older and we see that thing still operating, we might have gotten over it. A lot of times we haven't. But when we see it begin to affect other people and loved ones too, we were like, oh, I hate that. You're like, right there, right there, I hate that. And then you might say something like, man, somebody should do something about that. And Janelle, if you find yourself saying that and pointing a lot like somebody should do something about that, guess who the somebody is?
I don't know. I have no idea.
It's
So it
you.
should be
You know
me,
how it
right?
says, like if you point one way, you got three fingers
Yeah.
pointing back at you.
I know. I'll never forget that. I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop pointing at people.
Right. Stop pointing at people, right? So, here I like to give practical examples. So here's one practical example. I know we've both been out of school for a long time, but you can remember when you were in school that you had assigned seats, right?
Yeah.
And so can you imagine, Janelle, if you came into the classroom one day and your assigned chair, your assigned seat was broken, and you was like, I can't sit in this. Teacher, you see my chair broken? Can you do something about that? And the teacher was like, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I'll do something about it. And then like just completely forgot about it
Just
for the rest of the day. And then the next day you came in and you saw your chair still broken. You're like, for real? Like
what?
nobody wanted. You might try and find the janitor or get the principal. And just imagine that this goes on for days and weeks at a time and your chair remains broken. When you come into the classroom and you look over in the direction where you normally sit and you see this chair, you're like, man, I hate this chair. Because it affects you in a negative way. You're like, man,
Right.
nobody else hates your chair because everybody else's chair works. Everybody
Right.
else's chair is functioning. And so there is something hold on, pause. Would you agree, Janelle, that the world is broken?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
it's not like one singular thing that's broken. It's
No.
many different things that are broken. It's enough brokenness to go around the globe and affect everybody in a particular way that it won't necessarily, some of us will experience some things, but I mean, it's still uniquely internalized by who we are and where we are and our family and everything. So there's some brokenness that's in the world that impacts you in such a way that you're like, ooh, I don't like that. I don't feel good. And I need to do something about it.
Yeah.
Because now you've shifted from saying somebody should do something about it to, you know what, I'm going to do something about it. Because you know what happens with that chair, if eventually nobody fixes it, you might be like, man, I'm about to flip this joker upside down. What's wrong with it? You might try to break it down yourself. Nobody's doing
Right.
anything about it. It's my chair. I might as well try to fix it. Right?
Or I'm not going to lie to you, I might just switch it out. Just
somebody
put
said
it
that.
somewhere else.
Somebody got a little kid. Somebody was like,
let it be somebody else's problem.
You can't get no new chair. This is your chair.
Yeah, right. But look, if you say so, and then
there are no extra chairs in the classroom in the whole school. You stuck with this chair. You gotta do something about it.
Then I would try to figure out how to either, if it's the leg, do I need to put my book under it so that way it won't wobble?
Something. Like I gotta try something.
Something. Right.
And so this is how, I want us all to begin to approach the world that surrounds us, because there is a lot of brokenness in the world. And the reason why there's so much brokenness in the world is because everybody keeps looking to somebody else, like, well, somebody else will do something about it. Somebody else is more capable and more equipped to handle X, Y, and Z. And we got to stop looking around and be like, you know what? I have something to contribute. And that contribution that you have, Janelle, is your unique genius. It's how you were built. It's how you were made. That's unique to only you. That once you tap into it, it's like your solution, the way you address this brokenness is nobody else can do it the way you do it. Okay. So having said that, now I want you to recalibrate. And now that you are associating to something that you're passionate about to something that you hate, tell me something that you hate. Well, you said it already, like I believe, but can you just say it again? Like, tell me something that you hate.
So I do not like when not being heard, and not necessarily just in me, but even like, so if someone is speaking and they need someone's attention, or even if someone is saying something and people just aren't paying attention, I don't know why, but that like rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
So not sure exactly right now the word for it, but yeah, that it's just.
So to me, Janelle, that complements what you initially said your passion is, and it's like, I hate it when kids, you say, I love to help the people who feel helpless. And what other feeling do you have other than helplessness if you feel like you're not being given a chance to speak for yourself, to advocate for yourself? And so, I would ask you, I'm debating whether or not I ask you that or not, but I'll stick with me. I know for a time in my youth that I felt like that. I felt like nobody really was listening to me. Nobody heard me, because I had like gotten to a public school in 5th grade from a private Christian school, and everybody like picked on me. I was bullied like really badly, right? To the point where now, one of the reasons why names are important to me is because, when I would introduce myself, Family Matters was out back then around 4th, 5th grade. When I would introduce myself, I'd be like, "Hi, my name is like Urkel. You're Steve Urkel." They would just tell me who I was. I'm like, "Oh, word? You just gonna tell me who I am, and I don't get a chance. Right. I don't have no say in that." And I was like little and skinny, so I couldn't do nothing about it. So I was like, "All right, whatever." Like, and I grew tired of that, right? And so now, at one point in my life, and even now, I am like an advocate. I'm looking for who is voiceless. I want to give a voice to the voiceless. I want to know your name. That's why I'm like, is your name hyphenated? Because it's important for me to get your name right, because I know what it feels like when somebody puts something on you that doesn't belong to you. A name, title, or a label that doesn't belong to you, doesn't fit you. Or, you're a multi-dimensional person, Janelle. You shouldn't be categorized by one thing.
Yes.
And of course, as minorities, we deal with that in America because, me as a Black male, people see my height and stature, because I eventually got taller and, got a little wider. And people started putting labels on me like, "Oh, you're an athlete." Like, actually, no, I'm not. I'm athletic, but I'm not an athlete. Can you give me something? Right. Can you give me room to be like something intelligent? Right. Like right. I went to school and I remember I got a scholarship, and when I went to the little dinner to accept the scholarship, and people, used to go around mingling, and people were like, "Oh, you got a scholarship, football?" Nah, computer engineering, actually. They were like, I'm like, yeah,
right. Flabbergasted, right? I got you. Let me help you.
Yeah, let me help you. Let me just shift your paradigm a little bit.
Right.
Broaden your life. And, to a certain extent, I understand that all of us do that. When we come into a new environment, we assess the people that are in it, and we put labels on them so that we can feel safe. But you have to be willing to explore a person and let them define who they are, as opposed to telling them, like, this is who you are in my world, and you can't be anything else. Because if that person doesn't know who they are, there's a lot of Black males and there's a lot of Black females out there that don't know who they are. They may begin to acquiesce to what it is that other people are saying they should be. And that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because that's like, if the fish stays out of water long enough trying to climb this tree, what's going to happen to it?
Die.
It's going to die. And so I see dying genius all around me. And I've made it my goal for people to know who they are so that I can resuscitate, revitalize, and resurrect the genius that's on the inside of you. All right. So I want you to grab a hold of, remember what it is that you said you hated, because the next part of the equation gets into your talent. And in truth, your talent, like when you find something around your house that's broken and you feel like you have the capacity to fix it, like I think I can figure this out. What might you start to look for if you want to fix something that's broken?
Some tools.
Some tools.
Yeah.
This is so easy. Like it's not no trick question. You want to find a tool, right? That chair is broken. You're like, man, I need a tool. Even using a book is turning the book into a tool. And so,
anything.
Yeah, anything, right? But we're not talking about just anything now. We're talking about T for tool, T for talent. Your talent that you possess is the tool that you can use to address the thing that's broken, which is the thing that you hate that's connected to your passion. All right?
Okay.
So I've heard a little bit from you now to know what I think you might say your tool is, but you might surprise me though. So why don't you tell me what's your talent? What do you see as your talent, Janelle?
So, well, okay. I do feel like if we're talking in regards to like the passion, the hate, my talent could be listening, and then I don't want to say regurgitating, but listening, taking it, and then changing it so that way everyone is able to understand. So I am a good listener. I listen very well, especially when it's under helping someone. And then if I feel like the person who the message is for, if they're not understanding it, I will change it in a way where maybe they could possibly understand it. And usually it works.
Okay.
So I'm able to alter what's needed.
That's interesting because that's what you said your math teacher did for you.
Yes.
Took this concept and then was able to package it in such a way that you receive. Okay, that's interesting. So let me go off on a little bit of a tangent and talk to you about some little boys that I encountered a couple of years ago in a school. It's about 10 little boys, and they were in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. But all these little boys were in the same class all day. So they were on IEPs, individual education plans, like we would have called special ed back in the day. And so, I went in there. I was asked to come in and talk to them week after week for a year. And I said, hey, I just started workshopping this whole genius equation. And I was like, I'm going to start to talk to them about genius. And I'm going to tell them that they're a genius and help them get beyond their limitations and help them so they don't feel so helpless. But Janelle wasn't easy. When I told these boys, when I said, hey, you guys are geniuses, they looked at me like, dude, like, shut up. We ain't no genius. Right. It was like, because they knew these labels that were being put on.
They were already in the box.
They were already in the box. They were already hugging this tree, trying to climb it, because it was like, hey, you don't learn the way everybody else learns. So you have ADD, you have ADHD, you have emotional, just disruptive behavior, all these negative stuff, and they had gotten used to that to the point where when I gave them a positive affirmation about themselves, they kind of like
they couldn't take it.
No, they didn't like that. But I've been working with youth for a long time now, so I knew they kind of didn't like that. But I knew if I asked them this next question that I already asked you, that I was going to get them to start talking to me, and we was going to have a conversation. So I asked them. I was like, okay, fine. You don't want to accept that you're a genius. That's cool. Like, tell me what you hate though. And these little boys, Janelle, who could never agree on anything, they would fight over what who was playing what game, fight over who's in what chair, fight over just anything, right?
Yeah.
All these little boys universally told me the same thing. What do you think they told me?
Probably how they were being treated in school. Just the fact, like their class or how they were labeled, I guess, because even the IEP is a label, technically.
It is a label. And so they didn't, get into how I'm being treated in school. They just left it at school. I hate school, Mr. Key. Now, they looked at me like, what's he going to do with that, though? Because they thought they had ruined my whole thing. And, I love it when, that's my number one answer. I love it when somebody tells me, a student tells me that they hate school, because what I tell them next blows their mind. And I say, hey, look, if you listen to what I'm saying, and I'm like, I don't mind that you say that you hate school, you hate a particular subject, you hate math. Because the school system, like the world, is broken. And so this school system, which is putting you in this class, is making you feel marginalized, making you feel like you don't matter. I don't blame you that you hate it. But guess what though? I'm like, if you agree that the thing, and I was like, just flow with me, because they was trying to disagree with everything I was saying. I was
Of
like,
course.
if you heard what I said, that the thing that you hate is the thing that you were meant to fix in this world, then each of you is a future educator. And it was like, oh, that thing got real quiet. I'm like, no, why y'all get quiet? Why you backing away? Let's talk about it.
Right.
I'm like, let's talk about it. I said, hey, look, listen, there are 8 different learning styles, right? And at most schools are only teaching from 3.
Three.
And it's visual, auditory, and then the logic, the left brain aspect. There's the creative side and there's the logic side. And I was like, if you don't speak one of those 3 languages, or if your learning style isn't one of those 3, but that's all people keep forcing information to you through this particular style, you're gonna feel like, I feel like a fish out of water. I feel like I don't belong. I feel like I'm dumb. And then you start being treated like you're dumb because now you're getting pushed to the side. I was like, instead of exploring, like, there are tests that you can take to figure out what your learning style is. And I'm like, you guys are probably either kinesthetic, which means you have to be moving around, or you're probably exploratory or expeditionary, which means that you gotta like have your hands on it, and you're a hands-on learner, but you keep getting told, keep your hands to yourself, be still, and you're in an environment that's not your element. And so, of course, you feel out of place. Of course, you're going to eventually hate that. It's like that broken assigned chair. Like, I hate this place. I said, but if you take your learning style, once you find out what it is, if you take your learning style and instead of running away from the system that's broken, you run towards it and say, hey, I'm going to turn my learning style into a teaching style. Now you're reaching other people who speak the same language as you. And now you're beginning to put in the missing piece that's keeping this system broken. That's like revolutionary for school systems.
It is, because there's so many kids out there that just are getting IEPs or getting paper trails behind them, just because the schools don't want to explore just a tad bit further into how to help kids. They rather.
But it's like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say they would rather start the paper trail for them and create IEPs for them and put them in special ed classes or behavioral classes instead of trying to figure out how to help them completely. So
yeah, I mean, in my personal opinion, I'm a quasi educator. Like, keep people in the same grades. That's cool. But you need 8 different styles of teaching to then get these 8 different types of learning into those, paired with those particular type of teachers. But guess what? There's not enough teachers to do that, because the whole next generation of teachers is getting marginalized and pushed to the side. Like, you don't learn right. This system that we have is all that we gonna do. And so, you just gonna get pushed to the side. And so the solution that keeps getting like swept out the door before it gets a chance to contribute.
absolutely.
And that process exists in every sector, in every industry of the world. And is contributing to the brokenness, is continuing in this gap that keeps getting bigger and bigger, larger and larger, between those who can function in that environment and those who cannot. And so this is what the last part of the equation is really simple. Your purpose in life is to identify what your talent is, your tool, and then apply it to the thing that you're passionate about, the thing that's broken in the world that you hate. Because once you tap into that, Janelle, you're not going to care whether you get paid. I mean, obviously that's the goal eventually. Like, I used to do these workshops for free because I was like, this is too important. In U46, I'm like, in that school district, it's too many kids getting left behind. I just get me in front of some kids and let me have this message. You can't pay me? Fine, I'm coming in anyways. And now, guess what? Elgin High School is in works to tie me to a grant that'll have me doing this thing 25 times in Elgin High School next year and getting paid.
Well, that's amazing.
So you'll keep doing it, and your results will be through the roof, because you're like, I'm not motivated or driven by money. I'm driven by this brokenness that I see. I hate it when people don't know who they are, because you'll just let anybody put anything on you and be like, this is who you are. You don't know who you are. I'm gonna define it for you. And I hate that.
Yes.
Right. So you won't care how big the system is. You won't care, like, man, you will be David seeking out your Goliath and your 5 smooth stones, which is your talent, to knock this dude's head off. And you won't care, like, maybe the first one don't connect. You're like, I'm gonna keep going until I see this thing fall. Kiana, my wife, she always says, like, what's the best way to eat an elephant? Like, one piece at a time.
Like I was thinking, like from the foot up. Do you start at the ear, the trunk? But no, yeah, one piece at a time. You're
Just one piece
absolutely
at a
right.
time. Like you don't care how big it is, you're just gonna attack it. And that's the drive now that you have.
Yeah.
I got something within me that can address this in a way that only I can, and I'm not afraid to address it anymore. And so, Janelle, what I want to help you do, what I hear you saying, and that you can take a message and kind of internalize it, and then process it and give it and disseminate the information to people in a way that they can understand. What that lets me know, Janelle, is you're like a Rosetta Stone. You're like the person who can take a learning style, take information in one learning style and repackage it and put it into another learning style that helps somebody, that helps you be able to understand, okay, this is what's being said, and this is how I can respond in kind to what's being said to me. Because this other person speaking another language, I don't understand it. But you are telling me that you have the capacity to, you know what it's called? You know what Black folks had to learn to do when we got into corporate America?
Oh, the code switch?
Code switch. What it sounds like to me, Janelle, is you have the capacity to help people code switch and to get them to get this information in such a way that they can process it and then begin to actually respond to it and then begin to feel like they're part of the larger group again. So you are one who can help. What's the word that I want to say? You can help reinstitute people into a system that initially rejected them.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. Actually, when you put it like that, that's exactly what it is. I there's something about people not understanding what's going on and trying to still like act like they do. I'm like, no. Let me just explain it real quick so that way when you go do your next step, you know what you're doing. Because I mean, that's like foundational type of helping. Like, I need you to understand this so that way we can move forward. If you don't understand this is where we're going to be at until you get it. So, yes, I do agree with that.
And you doing that helps create the word. This phrase escapes me too, but it helps create this more complete. Like it's one thing to have like if 60% of people get it, that's cool, but there's something about getting to the 80% and the 90% of people who can flow into something that just makes it more impactful. I mean, and you can take this and utilize this anywhere in any system. You can go into a business and be the person that's like human resources type stuff. But what I heard for you though is, have you ever, there was I forget what the name of the school is now. It's gone through several different names, but there's a school down there on Chicago Street that
Gifford.
What's it called?
Gifford.
It was called, but it has a new name now. But
it does.
Have you ever felt like drawn to like help some of the students that were getting channeled into Gifford?
Absolutely. Even as a kid. Yeah. Even as a kid, I would make friends. I'd be like, no, just stand next to me. You good? Don't talk back to this teacher. She's just trying to get you. Whatever it is, like there's just something about them, and even because I also worked in U46 for like 7 years. There is something about some of these troubled kids that I absolutely adore. Absolutely, just pulled to just. And then once they come full circle, once their behavior starts to level out, and like sometimes like working with kids, not a lot of people like to brag on this, and it's not even like a brag, but I had made friends with a kid and their family, and the mom she was like, I don't know what it is that you and Miss Hughes did. You guys just did amazing. My sons are just so much better. One was autistic, the other one had some behavioral things going on, and she always used to just bring it up like, I don't know what you guys did. I've raised them all my life, and they get to you guys and they turn their lives around. And the oldest one, he actually just graduated from high school last year. The youngest one has 2 more years, and she's just like in awe of the people that they have become. And that gives me joy.
That's so dope, because most people have either tapped into this genius or are tap dancing around it, and they just don't know it. And so I love walking people through this equation, because it'll either direct them to where they're about to go, or it'll inform where they've been. and why they've been there. So yeah, I had no idea that you was working with, that you spent 7 years in U46 school district. I had no idea, but it begins to speak clearly when I start to walk people through this equation, and you begin to identify what you hate, and you begin to identify what your talent is, because then it just manifests. And so that's great. So go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, and I think the timing of this is interesting, because I have now been in a different line of business where I'm able to do it sometimes, just not as much.
Yep.
And it hasn't been bringing me complete joy. I've enjoyed my time in the business world, but I don't feel fulfilled. There's something missing.
You need that fulfillment. And I'm gonna go back to this again, because too often we were told, like I got into computer engineering for my major because mainly I was good at math and I wanted to make money. And money should not be the motivator. I'm not even doing that anymore. Like I've been out of that sector for like 20 plus years. And we keep saying the wrong message to kids as they're getting out of high school, like make that money. And the money will come, but you got to find that fulfillment and that joy though. And that fulfillment and joy is revolving around your genius. So you got to first, I know that I have something genius to offer the rest of the world. And then you have to begin to find your element and find your lane. It sounds like you've already found your element. And I'm glad that you mentioned Miss Hughes, because if you're trying to figure out, well, I don't know how I get back in. You have a connect. Miss Hughes got a lot of connections. And there's a lot of connections. If you're still at Second Baptist, there's still a lot of connections there that can get you back plugged into that U46, or at least in an environment where you can begin to service the people, the young boys and girls that need it. And you know, because the formative years are where these things begin to settle in. That's where I see your demographic too, is the young kids. Not the older ones, because the older ones at that point, they almost need like a man to come in and be like, sit down, no.
Right. I'd be like, listen, I'm talking to you. They'd be like, whatever.
You can aesthetic, but sit down, though.
Yeah, I'll try. It might work. You know, it's like throwing a dart. I'm not good at darts, so I can use that. Sometimes it might hit, sometimes.
We want you to hit that bullseye, Janelle, and you're more prone to hit that bullseye when you have these younger children that you can be around, to be this Rosetta Stone, to get this information into them and to help them process it so that they can then begin to function like they were meant to and thrive.
Yeah. And that's what I would love to see. That makes me really happy. The idea. Yeah.
And it's funny because, you know, I know I say your passion is tied to what you hate, but many times the love hate, it's like two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely.
It's going to be associated to something that you love too at the same time. Like for me, I love hip hop, but I hate where it is right now. I hate how it's used. I hate how it's misused. I hate how it creates labels for us to put on and be like, oh, am I this though? Am I a thug? It's like, no, that's not who you are. And so though I love the platform, I love the capacity that it has to create change, I hate how it's not being used appropriately. And so, yeah, that love-hate relationship is there. So, you know, I see that in you. I see your genius shining through, Janelle.
I know, I found it, and I really am resonating with it right now, so just don't mind me.
Nah, I'm gonna mind you completely. So I'm gonna ask you in this interview how we started. Janelle, do you see yourself as a genius?
Yes, I do see myself as a genius.
All right, that's all I needed to hear. That's all I wanted to hear.
You're right.
And I'm glad to be able to help you with that. And as you begin, genius is it begins with you, but it doesn't stay there alone, because then it begins to look outward and say, how can I impact the people around me? And you already have that drive, so you're well on your way to unlocking your genius and changing the world and the environment around you, one student at a time.
I am. Thanks, Reggie.
You're welcome. So
I'm glad I did this.
I'm glad you did it too. So
I know.
This has been Ink Well Spoken, presenting Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I'm your host, Reggie Key, motivational speaker, author, and publisher. And this has been my genius guest, Janelle Scruggs-Bagley.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Janelle, I'm going to end it with this. It's my uncommon cue to see the genius in you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny, by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwellspoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.